This is something that could have happened. Researchers used computer modeling to reconstruct the conditions of the Red Sea over 2,000 years ago. They say a strong eastern wind could have driven back the waters to create a coastal lagoon in northern Egypt. This strong wind may have exposed a mudflat long enough for the Israelites to walk across.
Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. My name is Uticas if you are new, and without wasting any time, let's get to the video.
Friend David is actually going to be helping me out today, so we can give you a little bit more variety. Everyone say hi!
Number 10. The War in Heaven. One biblical battle we're all familiar with is the war in heaven, and it all starts with God and an angel named Lucifer. The cherub Lucifer is described in Ezekiel as the seal of perfection and perfect in beauty. He held a high place in heaven, and he was looked upon favorably by the other angels. But as time wore on, Lucifer wanted more. He had an idea that he could be greater than God. This was how the war in heaven started. Lucifer drew other angels to his cause, angels who wanted more than just to be tools of the Lord. They drew away from God, became bloated with pride and greed, and then Lucifer tricked Adam and Eve. This allowed evil to be born into the world. Thus came the war in heaven. Archangel Michael and his devout followers fought against Lucifer and his tainted angels until he was finally defeated. In the book of Isaiah, Lucifer is the son of the morning who falls from heaven and is cast down to earth. This is generally believed to be Lucifer's defeat during the initial war in heaven. His fallen angels then go on to breed with the daughters of men, creating the abominations called the Nephilim. This eventually causes God to bring about the flood that cleansed the world. Number 9.
And the angels who slept with human women, weren't they watchers? I think they were different from the fallen angels who rebelled. Yeah, at least that's what I read. I think that was a mistake, or maybe I have to look into it better. Maybe it's I really doubt it. They were called the Watchers. I think those were different ones. Yeah.
Battle of Jericho. In the book of Joshua, the Battle of Jericho was the very first fight between the Israelites and the Canaanites. God ordered the Israelites to take their rightful land back from the pagan, idol-worshipping Canaanites by extreme force. However, many biblical scholars call it a genocide, a senseless destruction of an entire people ordered by God. The biblical version is that the Israelites marched around the city of Jericho for 7 days and blew their trumpets. When they blew their trumpets on the last day, the walls came tumbling down. Following the orders of God, they invaded the city and killed every man and woman within it. They also killed all their oxen, sheep, and donkeys. But let's look at the historical events. In 1868, archaeologist Charles Warren identified the city of Tel es-Sultan as the true location of biblical Jericho. Collapsed walls were uncovered during excavations between 1930 and 1936. But then in 1952, Kathleen Kenyan confirmed the walls to be much older, likely destroyed during an Egyptian campaign against the Hyksos kingdom around the 17th century BC. This is one biblical battle that may have never happened. Most scholars agree the book of Joshua has almost no historical value. The story of Jericho could have just been propaganda from the kingdom of Judah to cement their claims over the kingdom of Israel around 722 BC. Number 8.
Okay, question. I want to ask, do you believe that the Bible is historically accurate, or is it not? Because I see a lot of people are divided on this. Some people say the Bible is an infallible book, some say it's not. What do you think? Tell me in the comments section.
Elijah's army of angels. In the book of Kings, the ancient kingdom of Aram was at war with Israel. The prophet Elijah infuriated the king of Aram because he seemed to know every move the king would make before he made it. The prophet then warned the king of Israel so he could change his army's strategy, and Israel continued to win battle after battle. Furious, the king of Aram sent a massive force of soldiers to the city of Dothan to capture the prophet Elisha, thereby depriving Israel of any additional victories. According to the Bible, Dothan was believed to be a force of horses and chariots. They surrounded the city at night, and it looked like Elisha was about to be dragged out and murdered. However, just before that happened, the hills became bright with an army of angels, chariots of fire, and fierce horses. There was no way for the earthly army to break through the city gates because they would have been cut down by the flaming swords of the angels. Elisha then prayed and asked God to make all the soldiers of the enemy's army go blind, and God answered. The soldiers were brought away from the city, and Elisha took pity on them and asked that God forgive them and return their eyesight. God did this as well. Unfortunately, we have no archaeological record that Dothan was even a real city. We also have no historical records of any army going momentarily blind. In all likelihood, this part of the Bible was a story about forgiveness and how one can forgive even their worst enemies. Number 7. The Battle of Armageddon. The Battle of Armageddon, as described in the book of Revelation, is the last battle of them all. The Christian interpretation of the battle is that it will be fought at the end of days between the human governments of the world and God. In this final showdown, God will almost certainly be the victor. Many Christians believe that even now, as the government of earth opposes God and refuses to submit to his rule, the battle is brewing. When Armageddon is fought and the humans are defeated along with their false prophet, the dominion of mankind will be brought to its knees and ended forever. The word Armageddon only comes up once in the Bible. Revelation 16:16 says that at a place named Armageddon, the kings of the inhabited earth will gather together for war against God the Almighty. Jesus Christ will be at the head of a heavenly army, and the measly human cavalry won't stand a chance. What nobody really knows is where this battle will be fought. The word Armageddon likely refers to a place called Megiddo in northern Israel. Battles have been fought here as far back as the 15th century by warring kingdoms in old Mesopotamia. There are some who believe Israel will be the final battleground against God. Others think Armageddon is more of a symbolic idea, an ideological battle that will happen as humanity forsakes God and the world is plunged into sin. Number 6.
Yeah, of the three he's mentioned, like what do you think will happen? Yeah, there's always this idea of the world is ending, like from a very very long time ago. Yeah, like you said, like is it an ideological one? Will there be like angels everywhere and demons and or Jesus fighting with the governments of the world? Like I've heard a lot of things growing up, so like send me what you've heard and what you believe in the comments.
Moses and the pursuing cavalry. After God sends the 10 plagues of terror onto Egypt, the Pharaoh has no choice but to allow the Israelites to leave Egypt and return to the Holy Land. Moses is the one who leads the Israelites to the Red Sea, where safety waits just beyond the waters. However, the Pharaoh changes his mind at the last minute and sends his cavalry in pursuit of the escaping Israelites. God allows Moses to part the Red Sea so that they can escape. The host of chariots chase them across the seafloor, and then the waters crash down upon them. The army of the Pharaoh is defeated and drowned, and Moses, along with the Israelites, escape. According to researchers at the National Center for Atmospheric Research and the University of Colorado, this is something that could have happened. Researchers used computer modeling to reconstruct the conditions of the Red Sea over 2,000 years ago. They say a strong eastern wind could have driven back the waters to create a coastal lagoon in northern Egypt. This strong wind may have exposed a mudflat long enough for the Israelites to walk across. If they had been chased by the Pharaoh's cavalry, when the wind died down, that cavalry may have been destroyed. Carl Drews, the lead author of the study, says the team's simulations match almost exactly with the account found in the book of Exodus. They may have just scientifically confirmed the story of Moses parting the Red Sea. Do you believe that Moses really did part the Red Sea, or do you think it could have been heavy winds that allowed the Israelites to escape as suggested by researchers? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button.
The story of Moses parting the sea was always interesting to me when I read it when I was young. So yeah, it looks like they proved it did happen. So yeah, that's yeah, that's science, and yeah, it's fact. So yeah, that did happen. So whether or not they did cross the Red Sea due to like the intervention of God, or whether it was because of the wind conditions at the time, then regardless, yeah, it's something that did happen. But yeah, according to the they did.
Number 5. War of the Nephilim. The first mention of the Nephilim comes from the book of Genesis. The passage says that when men began to multiply across the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God took notice. They saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and they wanted them for their own wives. These sons of God are interpreted to be the angels who followed Lucifer and were cast out during the war in heaven. Already stained and corrupted, the angels took human women as brides and procreated with them. The children born through this unholy union were known as the Nephilim. They were so ugly and detestable that God needed to do a full reset of the planet, and so he brought the flood to wash away the filth of the Nephilim. This is what we see in the book of Genesis, but there is another story in the forbidden book of Enoch which is not included in the official Bible. It's here that we get a more in-depth look at the Nephilim and who they really were. We see how the fallen angels teach their wretched offspring how to make swords and shields, and how to mold the metals of the earth for war. We also see how these days are darkened by godlessness, and how the fallen angels lead their offspring astray and corrupted everything across the lands. The angels Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel appeal to God. They say the world of the fallen angels is so corrupted that there's nothing to do but start over. This begins the war between the angels and the Nephilim. The Lord commands his good angels to cast the fallen angels into darkness. Archangel Gabriel is then given explicit instructions to convince the Nephilim to go forth and confront one another in battle. The Nephilim then seemingly fall into civil war and destroy each other. Number 4.
I did make a video about the book of Enoch a while ago, so go check that video out if you want.
David and Goliath. David and Goliath fight an epic one-on-one battle in the Bible. Goliath is the giant champion of the Philistines, the archenemy of Israel, and David is a young shepherd boy from the tribe of Judah. The Bible describes how Goliath shouts and curses at the Israelites and denounces their God. He calls for someone brave enough to meet him in combat, but none answers his challenge. Only David, a young Israelite, is courageous enough to stand against the blaspheming giant. But David is only a boy. He has no sword and no armor. All he has is his will to defend the name of God and to defend his people. He also has a slingshot, and he picks up a few small stones to use as ammunition. David and Goliath meet on the field of battle, ready to fight to the death. However, the fight is over as quickly as it begins. David throws a stone with his sling, bringing the giant down instantly. The Bible says the battle between David and Goliath happened 3,000 years ago. Philippe Bostrom, a professional archaeologist, believes the fight could really have happened. He uses archaeology to prove his point. He says the way Goliath's armor is described in the Bible fits perfectly well with archaeological discoveries from the same era. What this means is that the historical realities are reflected by the biblical narrative. It wasn't just a story loosely thrown together in the 7th century BC. But does this mean there really was a David and Goliath and that biblical giants existed? Unfortunately, there's no way to tell for sure. Number 3. Assyrian siege of Jerusalem.
Yeah, could have possibly happened, yeah. So yeah, I do believe that I used to be taller, stronger people back in the day. You know, like I do think so. So even recently in the in the recent century, there have been known, or before even then, there have been documented that there was once giants walking around on Earth. There have been a lot of archaeological finds. Maybe I might be wrong, but I do think that giants used to exist. Yeah, it is possible. Yeah.
In the books of
And even nowadays, there are tall people like giants walking around somewhere. Go look it up and you'll find. So it's a possibility. Yeah.
Sure. Number 3. Assyrian siege of Jerusalem. In the books of Isaiah, 2 Kings, and Chronicles, we hear of the Assyrian siege of Jerusalem. This is one biblical battle that most certainly took place in the real world. It happened most likely in 701 BC, and it was a huge blunder for the Neo-Assyrian Empire. King Sennacherib attacked the kingdom of Judah by devastating the countryside on a mission of conquest and subjugation. Everything was going relatively well until he came to the city of Jerusalem. The king of Assyria surrounded the city, but could never capture it. We know this happened, but we don't know the exact details. In the Bible, King Hezekiah of Judah paid a ransom in silver and gold to Assyria for them to leave Jerusalem alone. Despite the bribe, Sennacherib attacked anyway. He brought his army to the gates of Jerusalem, and then God sent an angel to strike them down. The Assyrians were ultimately sent crying back home to the city of Nineveh. On the flip side, there is a stone tablet called Sennacherib's Prism, which was discovered in the ruins of Nineveh in 1830. The artifact is currently held at the Oriental Institute in Chicago, and it details the events of the campaign from the perspective of the Assyrians. The Assyrians claimed that they destroyed 46 cities in Judah and trapped King Hezekiah in Jerusalem like a caged bird. The tablet says the Assyrians took the city, even though that doesn't seem to be the case. The historian Herodotus wrote that the Assyrian army was destroyed by mice and ravaged by the bubonic plague, and were forced to cancel their siege. Number 2. The Pharaoh's War. Merneptah ruled ancient Egypt in the 19th dynasty from between 1213 BC and 1203 BC. He ruled for almost 10 years, was the 13th son of the mighty Pharaoh Ramses II, and was likely around 70 years old when he took the throne. In the grand scheme of Egyptian civilization, Pharaoh Merneptah did not play a large role, but he was the first foreign leader to officially announce the annihilation of Israel, earning him a very peculiar place in history. When a memorial stele, a large piece of rock with an inscription on it, was discovered in the Egyptian city of Thebes in 1896, researchers found that it described a military victory against Israel. The stele mentions Israel by name for the first time in Egyptian history. It loosely says that Israel has been wiped out and its seed is no more. And yet the supposed victory appears nowhere in the historical records. The pharaoh declared his victory over Israel, but we have no evidence of any such battle taking place during his rule. There isn't even a battle mentioned in the Bible involving the Pharaoh and the Kingdom of Israel. The closest we have is in the book of Psalm, when Egypt is denounced as a predatory kingdom, hungry for violence. There is some vague telling of Egypt viciously attacking Israel, but no details or dates are given. This could be the secret war that Pharaoh Merneptah supposedly waged against Israel and was lost to history. Number 1.
Or he could have just wanted to be etched into history. It is possible. Like if he wanted to be like famous, like all the other pharaohs or something, he could have just faked it, So or maybe it did happen. There's a lot in our Earth's history that we don't know about.
The War of the Nine Kings. The Battle of Siddim, also known as the War of Kings, is an event found in the book of Genesis. It allegedly occurred in the days of Abraham, when the people of the Jordan Plain revolted against the Elamite Empire and its allies in Mesopotamia. The Bible says that 9 kings met in the valley of Siddim and waged a great war. There were 5 kings from the Dead Sea region and 4 kings from Mesopotamia. King Kedorlaomer was the ruler of Elam, and he grew furious when the cities of the Jordan Plain stopped paying tribute. And so the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, and the kings of Admah, Zeboiim, and Bela revolted. However, their revolt did not go as planned. The Mesopotamian forces overwhelmed the 5 kings and drove their armies into tar pits. The few who escaped fled into the mountains. When Abraham learned of what happened, he chased the victorious armies of Mesopotamia and defeated them north of Damascus. Much like many of the events in Genesis, there is basically no way to confirm that the War of the 9 Kings happened. Most scholars agree it was a fictional story, as there is no historical evidence of any such war taking place. Which epic biblical battle is your favorite?
It could have been like fiction. You never know. The histories are very complicated. Like, tell me, like, do you believe that the Bible was written by people inspired by God, or do you believe it's just an account of history with a little bit of fiction, written a long time ago? Like, what do you think? Like, you should do your own research and find out for yourself. I'm not attacking any religion, just telling you to just think for yourself. Go out there, do your research, and then make your own conclusions after. Yeah, the Bible is yeah, it's a very like complicated book to talk about, when it comes to religion and all of that, so do your research. And what do you think about this video? Was it a good one? Do you want to see more? And yeah, thank you for watching, and see you amazing people in the next video.